In the intricate web of modern society, one issue that often goes unnoticed until it becomes a full blown crisis is waste management. It's a seemingly mundane topic, but the consequences can be far reaching and devastating when mismanagement occurs on a grand scale. But amidst the scandals and struggles, one intriguing question emerges. Can we find a way to strike a balance between our ever growing need for progress and the imperative to protect the environment we depend on? Before we explore, smash the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. The production has witnessed a series of mergers and acquisitions, with this particular company emerging as the dominant player. Their financial report for 2021 showcased a remarkable achievement, boasting nearly $18 billion in revenue. Returning to the 1950s, it's evident that waste collection operated on an entirely different paradigm. During this era, the volume of waste generated was significantly lower compared to our contemporary times. Consequently, the regulations governing waste disposal were notably more lenient, reflecting that waste management was less pressing. In the 1950s, waste disposal was primarily the responsibility of municipalities or cities. Occasionally, small private companies would handle this task. However, during this decade, the waste management industry expanded rapidly. The sudden surge in waste production necessitated the growth of this sector. This period followed closely after World War II, coinciding with a significant baby boom, which led to rapid population expansion. Furthermore, the robust state of the economy meant that people were actively purchasing a wide range of goods. Notably, these newly acquired items often came in disposable containers, contributing to the substantial increase in waste generation. Combining all these elements, we find ourselves immersed in a story of transformation. In 1956, a modest garbage collection enterprise known as A Scavenger stood on the horizon. However, fate had a plan of its own. Following the founder's passing, the company's reins were handed over to his son in law, Dean Buntrock. During this era, their fleet consisted of just 12 garbage trucks, primarily servicing the Chicago area. However, Buntrock possessed a keen eye for the burgeoning potential within the waste management industry. Recognizing this opportunity, he made substantial investments aimed at significant expansion of the business. As one would anticipate, Buntrock pursued various avenues to realize this growth. It included procuring new trucks, striking deals for garbage collection in previously untapped regions, and even acquiring some of the smaller competitors in the field. However, the turning point came in 1965 when the government responded to the escalating nationwide trash production and its consequential impacts by enacting the Solid Waste Disposal Act of 1965. Without delving into the details, it essentially introduced more rigorous regulations for collecting and properly disposing of waste. With these elevated standards came increased expenses for all players in the industry. If you couldn't afford to meet these standards, it became a sink or swim situation, and only the larger, more organized companies managed to stay afloat. Fortunately, a scavenging company had spent the past decade expanding its operations, enabling it to weather the changes successfully. A few years later, they merged with a similar company, forming a new entity, Waste Management. Waste Management recognized this reality and took every possible measure to fortify its position. In 1971, they initiated an initial public offering or IPO that generated substantial capital, which they promptly utilized to create the acquisition of rival firms. In 1972, they moved significantly by acquiring 90 smaller waste hauling companies. They then secured contracts from foreign nations to manage their waste disposal needs. Additionally, they ventured into handling chemical and hazardous waste subject to evolving government regulations. In their inaugural year of running their waste management business in 1968, they generated $5.5 million in revenue. Contrastingly, by the early 1980s, their income had grown significantly, reaching nearly $1 billion. During the 1980s, they found themselves entangled in a series of scandals revolving around the improper disposal of hazardous waste in unauthorized locations. Fast forward to today, the allegations against them have taken on a more profound dimension. They have openly confessed to the unlawful disposal of hazardous materials at a site in Ohio and another in Alabama, leading to hefty fines totaling millions of dollars. Their stock price experienced a sharp downturn, and a barrage of negative publicity. Surprisingly, they managed to stage a relatively swift recovery from this setback. However, the scandal we wish to tackle doesn't pertain to this incident. In the early 1990s, following a prolonged period of sustained growth and prosperity, they found themselves grappling with significant financial difficulties. During that period, consumer spending declined, resulting in reduced production and subsequently less waste generated. Businesses were also producing fewer goods, which contributed to a decrease in waste production. In 1993, their revenue experienced a drop for the first time in their history, and profits were notably down due to these economic shifts. Between 2005 and 2010, in 6 consecutive years, if a company's financial performance fell short of projection, it had adverse implications for its stock value and the organization's overall health. The incentive to manipulate earnings data was intense during this period, although the process wasn't as straightforward as merely altering a single figure with a red pen. Some tactics performed to create the illusion of superior performance included unconventional methods. As the SEC pointed out, they managed to circumvent depreciation expenses associated with their fleet of garbage trucks by attributing unsupported and artificially high salvage values while extending their estimated valuable lifespans. This particular strategy was a significant contributor to their misleading financial portrayal. In a manner that's entirely analogous, they also allocated arbitrary salvage values to various assets that had previously been devoid of any salvage worth. Furthermore, there was an oversight in recording expenditures associated with the depreciation of landfill properties utilized for waste disposal. Additionally, they should have documented the essential outlays to amortize the expenses incurred from unsuccessful and abandoned landfill development endeavors. This case is particularly intriguing as it exemplifies a classic instance of incorrectly capitalizing costs. They initiated landfill projects, treating them as assets rather than expenses due to their potential for future benefits. However, these projects were subsequently abandoned, leading to a misallocation of capital. As no one will gain in the years to come, there's no longer any liability presently, which should be accounted for. However, depreciating it would reduce their profits, so they preserve it as an investment and assign that value to another dump. They created exaggerated liabilities, environmental reservations, and acquisition relationships so that the excess resources could be utilized to prevent unrelated operating costs and correctly amortize a range of prices. They needed to set up more reserves or liabilities for payment. For expenses such as income taxes, whatever amount of that you manage to keep, you've just understood that everything here is illegal, and it is to make their revenue appear more significant than it was. Consider the shareholders who purchased waste management shares throughout this period. Choosing which stock to invest in is difficult. Analyzing all the data to identify who is succeeding, who will expand, and where you can earn the most money. One of the significant factors that individuals rely on when making investment decisions isn't solely numerical data. It also involves human judgment. For instance, back in 1996, some diligent investors conducted thorough research. They observed that Waste Management Inc. had a substantial annual revenue of millions of dollars, and this information played a pivotal role in their decision to invest in the company's stock. In reality, however, their investment took a drastic turn for the worse, as it turned out that Waste Management Inc. had incurred a substantial loss of $39 million. The company had vouched for its authenticity, and an independent auditing firm, one of the big renowned Big Five firms, Arthur Andersen, had verified these numbers. Interestingly, Arthur Andersen later became infamous for their involvement in the more widely known Enron scandal. In a fascinating turn of events, Arthur Andersen stepped onto the scene, entrusted with scrutinizing Waste Management's financial records. As they delved deep into the numbers, they uncovered perplexing irregularities, prompting them to urge Waste Management to rectify these anomalies before granting their audit approval. In a bold move, Waste Management countered with a daring proposition, a quick sign-off promising to tackle the unsettling issues down the road. As the story unfolds, it appears that there were concealed conflicts of interest at play. Shockingly, Arthur Andersen stood to gain significantly by retaining Waste Management as a client, casting a shadow of suspicion over their auditing practices. The entire situation reeked of deception and dishonesty, revealing a web of deceit, that had entangled them both. Year after year, the same events kept happening and there was plenty of blame. However, Dean Buntrock, the CEO, chairman of the board, and founder of the company, is widely regarded as the primary individual responsible. According to the SEC, he set earnings targets, fostered a culture of deceptive accounting practices, personally oversaw accounting adjustments to meet those targets, and publicly announced these misleading earning figures. These actions presented the company in a far more favorable light than its actual condition and yielded personal benefits for him. Furthermore, apart from the $220 million agreed upon for settling shareholder lawsuits in conjunction with Waste Management's management team also consented to pay over $30 million to SEC, most of which Buntrock contributed. Many financial challenges were faced, yet the company managed to overcome them. The company is thriving and achieving more tremendous success than ever before. The EPA devises approaches for handling solid waste and polluted water, encompassing waste reduction, treatment, storage, and proper disposal strategies. What are your thoughts on this issue? How do you think we can prevent such scandals in the future? Share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear them. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you can stay updated with more insightful content.